Good evening, everyone. I'm Sybil Chen, the General Manager at SkyDeck, and welcome to tonight's event, The Future of Innovation at Berkeley, celebrating the book launch, Startup Campus, which was a team effort by several of you in this audience. It's wonderful to see everyone here tonight because really we know you're you're part of the community that has really powered the Berkeley engine and helped make Berkeley one of the leading universities in entrepreneurship. So tonight, we're not just celebrating a milestone, but really a movement about how Berkeley became a startup campus, right? This book really captures that journey, everything from how these bold ideas, how the visionary leadership, and how the vibrant community made Berkeley what it is today. So to all of you in the audience, startup founders, VCs, angels, advisors, and I&E campus leaders, Berkeley would not be what it is today without you. And so earlier this summer, when we realized that the book was about to be published, I said to Mike, we need to celebrate this moment because it is really a culmination of all of your efforts. And I see so many faces in this audience that we've been working together, at least at the SkyDeck front. Like we've been working with many of you advisors and for 8+ years, and you have been so instrumental in helping our startups. And it's been great to see the I&E community flourish under the leadership of people like Laura and Darren and Rich Lyons. So it is really worthy of celebrating this moment. And of course, Mike has really led the charge. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Mike Cohen. So hats off to him. This event is co-hosted by SkyDeck and Baker Biolabs, two organizations that are really committed to advancing Berkeley's entrepreneurial mission. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Jeremy, Gino, and Susan for the partnership over the past several years. With that, I'd like to introduce the co-host and partner in the celebration, Susan Jenkins, who's the Executive Director of the Baker Fellows Program. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, thank you, Sybil. So on behalf of the Baker Labs, the Baker Fellows Program, and QB3, I want to also extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Sybil captured it perfectly in her opening words. This is a movement, not just a milestone, but an amazing accomplishment to celebrate. So as the book Startup Campus captures, there are many, many partners across the campus and beyond that have played such a vital role in creating this incredible innovation, entrepreneurship ecosystem we have and all the I know we at Baker Labs, Baker Fellows, and QB3 look forward to continuing to work with everyone here in this room and beyond to keep things moving in the right direction, keep amazing, brilliant research translating to amazing applications that go out to solve the challenges for the real world. So without further delay, I will give you a quick rundown of what's to follow now. We're going to start with some comments from Laura Hastner, who's the strategic advisor to our amazing Chancellor, Rich Lyons. Then after Laura, she'll introduce Mike Cohen and his presentation, and that'll be followed by a panel moderated by Darren Cook, featuring Trevor Durrell, Carolyn Winnett, and Dave Schaefer, three amazing Berkeley leaders in this space. So thank you again very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here tonight. So many people, in fact, I would argue everyone in this room has played a vital part in UC Berkeley's role as an innovation and entrepreneurship powerhouse. So applause to all of you, if you'll join me. Thank you. I will soon be introducing Mike Alvarez Cohen, who in a way is the reason we are all here tonight as lead author for this book. What Mike was able to do was take the voices of over 100 contributors, many of whom are in the room with us today, and unify them into telling this wonderful story of Berkeley's transformation. This process took about 1.5 years, is that right, Mike? From 19 months from glimmer in eye to the book that you all are hopefully holding here today, which is an incredible thing when you think about the number of people who are involved and the depth of storytelling that had to take place. And if you haven't read it yet, it's really good. Like, I'm definitely biased, but the narrative structure and all of that, I found it really fun to read. And I've seen a lot of nods in the room. So great to see that. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our Director of Innovation Ecosystem Development, Mike Alvarez Cohen. And as I was asking him for bullet points, I was just kind of digging around in his past a little bit and pulled up a few nuggets. Co-founder of Berkeley SkyDeck, the Berkeley Startup Cluster, and the Berkeley Research Infrastructure Commons. So without further ado, Mike, please come on up and tell us a little bit about the book.
Thank you, Laura. It's a nice introduction. I hope my presentation lives up to it. So tonight I want to talk to you about the making of Startup Campus in 5 life lessons. And first, how many people out there have written and published a book? How many people out there aspire to write and publish a book? Yeah, like I thought, this is mostly a startup audience, not really an author audience, but you're all in luck because in many ways, writing and producing Startup Campus, a book like Startup Campus, is a lot like starting a company, especially a software company. So what I'm going to do is I go through these life lessons. I'm going to show you how they both pertain to the book, but also in your founder journey and startup journey. And the first life lesson has to do with the launch of the book, which was kind of like co-founding your company. And some of you might know that I have some introvert tendencies. I'm very happy all day long just working at my computer. Sometimes I'll do an online meeting, but I'm just very happy there. So it kind of takes me a little bit to get out. But this book would never have happened. No way would I be up here if not for me getting out of the office in September 2021 to go to an I&E Council happy hour. And at that happy hour, I was just lucky to sit next to Laura. And Laura started talking, and I started talking about work in our personal lives. And I mentioned that I have a new hobby. I'm learning to write science fiction. And Laura took an interest to that. So after our happy hour, I sent her a draft manuscript. And then a few weeks later, we had actually a dinner party with our spouses. And then fast forward 2 years to about November 2023. And Rich Lines, who was then this Chief Innovation and Entrepreneurship Officer, he sent an email to a bunch of us, including Laura and Darren and Carol Mamora and others out there. And he said, wow, a lot of the universities are starting to talk about Berkeley I&E, like MIT. And also at that time, we had just ranked #1 in PitchBook's list of the #1 universities for venture-backed startups founded by undergraduate alumni. And so I thought, okay, in the email I responded, maybe now we have the credibility at Berkeley to write the book about how we did this. And so sure enough, a couple months later, after talking about it a little bit, Rich and Laura officially launched the book as a UC Berkeley project and asked me to lead it. And so in that email, on February 1st, Laura writes, Mike, having read your writing, I'm confident that the book is in good hands with you. So there you go. It was just getting out there, made it happen. And that's a lesson. I guess it's a lesson for you founders, especially for you tech founders, get out there and meet your co-founder. And that's how it works. Okay, the second life lesson is in the planning for the book. And in many ways, this is like for your startup when you're creating a vision or maybe a business model. And the key life lesson there is setting goals and staying focused on them. Because we set out to write a book about Berkeley I&E, but it turns out UC Berkeley has a lot of areas of excellence. There's scholarly research, there's socioeconomic mobility, there's, dare I say, DEI. I don't know if anyone from the Trump administration is in the audience, but that's an area of excellence for us. So not surprisingly, a lot of the early input and a lot of the subsequent feedback advocated for integrating a lot of that other excellence into the book. And it became overwhelming. In some ways, it lost focus. And so through the drafting and iterating, we because we had set those goals early on, we had the credibility to keep the book focused on I&E. And that's in part why it became, I think, in part of why it's a good read, because it doesn't meander and lose its focus. So there again, lesson, when you're doing your startup, you got to find your North Star and stay focused. And by the way, it doesn't mean you can't pivot and change your goals. Like, for example, we developed a goal in February of 2025 this year, which was get that book published ASAP. And so again, these things can change over time, but still knowing your goals and staying focused is key for both your book and your startup. Okay, the third of the 5 life lessons, outlining. So I'm big into story structure. And that's kind of analogous to your startup. Again, this is kind of a software startup where you're developing your architecture, your software architecture, your design. And the lesson from the book is pursue lifelong learning. Because initially the book was planned as an edited volume in which different authors would write essentially like essays, and they were standalone, and they didn't have any continuity of arc or theme. And so, but in my hobby, lifelong learning hobby, which I started only 7 years ago, I learned that great books are character driven in addition to being plot driven. And they have kind of a through line theme, and they have an arc, and they have high stakes. And so, and that's, by the way, not just true in fiction, but also in nonfiction. Like, for example, these two great books over here by Walter Isaacson and Michael Lewis. Again, they're nonfiction, but they have characters. And so we wanted to impart that in the book. And so the challenge with this book, though, was we don't want to make a book just that talks about UC Berkeley I&E ecosystem as a point in time. We wanted to, create this story. And the other challenge was we didn't want to focus on any particular person or founder. We wanted to make the campus the character. And so how do you turn a campus into a character where, it has a personality and it has an arc and a story? That was part of the challenge. And so there were several ways to structure the book. And there's half a dozen ways. And two examples are, one, there was some feedback to make the book like a startup's journey, where you have a section on ideation, incubation, acceleration, and scale up. And then you fit programs that were like more for example, ideation, that part of the book, and you put founders in that part of the book. So, explore that structure a little bit, but also explore other structures, like, for example, a chronology. And in doing that research, I was wondering, well, how far back would we go if we did the chronology? And what I started to learn in the research is, there are certain phases that this campus went through and turning points. And actually, the story was, initially this campus was averse to doing things like commercialization. They didn't want it. It was more of a fundamental research campus, and that was the culture. So that became kind of an interesting part of the story. And again, all this has to do with learning late in life how to write great stories. And so again, that's the third life lesson. The fourth of the 5 life lessons is seeking feedback. I mean, this is obvious, but it was really compelling in this story here. And, writing and editing the manuscript is a little bit like writing software. And you may be familiar with a lot of software companies. They have this notion of a minimum viable product, an MVP. And they do that to get customer feedback right away. Or we had something called a minimum credible manuscript, an MCM. And so, so again, the analogies are really interesting. And so there was a full story, but it had still a lot of opportunities for improvement. And we put that out there to dozens and dozens of people. And, nearly at the end, could have added up to almost 100. We got a lot of feedback, and including, and I want to mention this, critical feedback. And I loved it. I mean, because that's really what makes you better. Getting that, you don't have to follow all of it, but really hearing different points of view, faculty, staff, alumni, people unaffiliated with the campus, listen to them because they would tell us, this is too much self-aggrandizement. Berkeley, it's too, tone it down a little bit, make it a little bit more substantive. So all that feedback was excellent. And by the way, we also got feedback from AI, and in particular, Claude. And I used to send excerpts to Laura and Darren about, look what Claude said about the, for example, the conclusion. And Laura writes back, wow, Claude must have had a bad day. It's really, really mean to you. It's like, really, the feedback was harsh, but we loved it. But one other thing about the feedback, a common feedback in addition to the critical feedback was, this is a good story. Get it out. We need to get this out. There's a lot of scrutinies on U.S. Universities these days, and we need to tell our story and show the world that these are great institutions. So we said, okay, we're going to get this thing out at the start of the 2025-26 academic year, which was September of this year. And so we went to UC Press and we said, okay, working backwards, when does everything need to be done to print it on that date? And they said July 1st. So, there's a lot of rush in there to make this book good enough. And everyone knows what FOMO is, fear of missing out. We had phony, fear of not including. We thought rushing to get this thing out there that we'd miss a person or a program that was critical. And so, again, all that feedback helped us ensure that we had the comprehensive story. And again, a nice life lesson for your book or your startup. Finally, the most important life lesson. And this had to do with the publication, which is kind of like your startup's go-to-market launch. And I feel like the big life lesson there is team up with great people. And so a book is more than its manuscript. There's so many aspects to it. There's the contracts, the budgets, the interior design for our book was important. The cover art, I could tell you a whole story about the cover art. The marketing, all the markets of including this nice event, printing, and all that stuff. There's just a lot of things involved here. And from our inception, we wanted to make this a team effort. But in some ways, if you think about a film, a film has a screenwriter, a director, a production crew, and producers. In many ways, Laura and Darren were like the executive producers on our team. And one more analogy between doing the book and doing a startup. The book had ups and downs, like your startup. And when you are with a great team, that they help you transcend all those low points and also help you revel in the high points. And then one final thought about this. What I've learned in my career is that there are a lot of people in the world that are highly competent. And there are a lot of people in the world who are high-minded. And there are also a lot of people in the world that are enjoyable to work with. But there are very few people that are all three. And so I encourage you to try to be one of them. And equally important, try to find them. And that's the people you want to write your book with and do your startup with. And those are the 5 life lessons. Get out and socialize, set goals and keep focused, pursue lifelong learning, seek feedback because it's a blessing. And, it's a gift. That's right. Sorry. Yeah, right. And team up with great people. And one final thought. The book has a life and eventually it will become outdated. But one of the things we spun off of the book is this website with a group of us, including Deborah, it's out there somewhere, where we're encouraging our community to submit their founder story, their startup origin story, and then we're going to lightly edit it and then post them on our website as a searchable directory, so we can start to build a community and a group of stories about our startup. So I encourage you to submit those stories, and thank you for your time, and remember those life lessons. Let's go to the panel.